So if anybody walking by is wondering, we are here talking about the ethnic cleansing and the attempted genocide that's ongoing right now in the state of Manipur in India. So like I said, I was born in Imphal, Manipur, and I just wanted to give you guys a short rundown of what has happened so far, and for people who are maybe not following the issue very closely, I just want to give a quick summary of it. So on May 4th of this year, a mob of over 1,000 people attacked my family home in broad daylight and nearly killed my father, who's in his late 80s. They destroyed the area surrounding my mother's grave, looted what they wanted, and burnt the rest of our home. And in the process, dispossessing my family, my eldest brother and his family narrowly escaped the chaos with only what they had on their bodies. We were targeted because we identify as Kuki-Zomi tribals, who are minority Christians in the state of Manipur. Second time on, I believe, June the 15th, around June the 15th or 16th. Over 350 churches set ablaze, and about 200 villages in the periphery of the Imphal Valley attacked, and leaving about over 41,000 internally displaced people. So that, I think, is probably the most conservative numbers we've been able to confirm. The actual numbers, when the dust settles, is probably going to be significantly higher than the numbers I just cited. So the Kuki-Zomis, just to give you guys a context, we're just about 16% of the population of Manipur, where the majority Métis, with whom this conflict currently is, they form about 53% of the state. They hold the economic and political power with 40 seats in the state legislature, permanently in the control of the majority community. So we've been kind of historically marginalized, and the actual number of seats in the state legislature that that are represented by people from our community is not more than 10 at any given time. So that kind of gives you the imbalance of power that we've been kind of subjected to since the very founding of the Indian Republic and the founding of the state of Manipur itself. So when the troubles began on May 4th, and we can go into a lot of the details of why and the specifics of who started the violence, but the issue is, when the troubles began, the state government, the government machinery, did not do anything. They let the flames of violence or the attacks or the tit-for-tat attacks continue on, and not just let it continue on, but they took a very blatant siding with the majority Métis community. So at this point, we have several video footages and different proofs that the state police, or the so-called commandos, they would lead all these rioting violent mobs, and they would attack the tribal neighborhoods, and then once they cleared the neighborhoods of any sort of resistance, then the mob behind comes and burns and whatever they want to do in terms of the violence. That's what's been happening. So we were systematically removed from the Imphal Valley in what is clearly a premeditated plan executed with precision, because now we have also got video evidences of a lot of the Kuki tribal homes being marked. With some, a few months ago, there were some surveillances and some different surveys that were done, and they marked our homes. So when the attacks began on May the 3rd, the mobs just came very, very precisely to every tribal home, or I should say every Kuki Zomi tribal home in the capital city. So that's why they were so effective at pretty much within a day or two, like able to remove us and kind of completely kick us out of the Imphal Valley. And that is also precisely why we call it ethnic cleansing. The failure of the state machinery to contain the conflict in its early stages is what is responsible for the ongoing crisis. We call it state-sponsored pogrom. Again, jumping the issues a bit, lately on July the 20th, there was a viral video that was leaked where Kuki Zomi women, two of them, were in a very brutal way paraded naked, and one of them was eventually gang raped in the open fields. So I think that was kind of what shocked India in general, and that's kind of what exposed this violence for what it was to the larger global audience. And so I wanted to just share something that most people might not know, which is my organization NAMTA, because we're not only in Canada, but we also have the diaspora community in the US that we're all part of together in this. So the rhetoric has been super toxic against our people. So they said, Kuki Zomis, and for those who don't know, we're right at the border of the India, Myanmar, or what used to be called Burma. We're a border state. And just like most people from around here would know that, the indigenous people in these lands, just because there's an international border, doesn't mean it's two completely separate people. So it's in a way very similar to what we have, because we have our kin and people who we're related to on the other side of the international border. And the border came way after, the people existed on either side of that, imaginary line today. So they said, we harbored refugees fleeing the war in Myanmar. That is the accusation. And my response is this not what you're supposed to do as humans with a heart? When somebody is running from war, is it a crime to give them refuge? They said we were poppy cultivators, or now the new term is narco-terrorists. But the fact is, because of the poverty, a section of our community, and not just our community, every other community in that state, they grow poppies. We completely accept that. The only issue we make is we're not the only ones doing it. In fact, the people who actually run the business, they are from the majority company who live in the capital city and who are much, much more well off, and they are the ones who fund these projects and who kind of facilitate the drug trafficking business there. They also said we were illegal immigrants. In our own lands, they're saying we're illegal immigrants and not indigenous people of Manipur. Even though we can trace back our ancestry for 40 plus generations through oral traditions alone. This is not some academic doing, deep research into the history of our people. Just based on our oral traditions alone, we can trace back to 40 plus generations. They said our tribal customs and traditions were too savage and harmful to the environment. So that's why, if you dig a little bit into this issue, you'll hear these Kuki Zomi tribals are encroaching into reserve forests. That's the term they use. Reserve forests. These are our ancestral lands. And they'll say, the way we live on the land, it's harmful to the environment. Even though, if you actually look at the track record, We have been better stewards of our ancestral lands than those who are now attempting to exploit our natural resources, first by exterminating us. And I don't want to sound too conspiratorial, but it is also very common knowledge now that many multinational companies have discovered oil and some rare earth minerals in the tribal lands in Manipur. So I don't think I have to say too much because I think people can make their own connections.
Over here with the camera. Mom, over here with the
Okay.
camera.
Let me get back on some of the atrocities that we've faced. And just as a quick sample, I want to talk about a 7-year-old boy who was burned with his mother and a neighbor alive in an ambulance. And they were just trying to seek medical attention for the little kid. And in 2023, you know, when we think we've advanced so much and the world has become a different place, a young man by the name of David Pink was beheaded. And, you know, and it's actually quite painful to even talk about it because these are really, I don't even know how to express it. It's just, it's very dehumanizing, to say the least. They shot a disabled woman, one of the last Kuki-Zomi people who were left in the capital city of Imphal, and she refused to leave the city even though she knew that her people had completely been removed from the Imphal Valley because, you know, she was mentally not well. Even a person like that was gunned down in the middle of Imphal city. With all this going on, now they say we should talk about peace and bringing back normalcy. They always want to talk about normalcy. We need to bring back normalcy.
Hey, I can't see.
But how can we talk about normalcy and peace when they have not allowed us to bring back even our dead bodies, our dead martyrs that are still decaying in Imphal morgues? And these are not even proper morgues. They're just kind of in a cold room, and we're not even allowed to give them a proper burial. That's the state of affairs that we're kind of facing right now. They've built a narrative to demonize and dehumanize us, and that's why I want to say shame on the Manipur government, shame on the Bharatiya Janata Party, Meghalaya Chief Minister Biren Singh. And if you look up this issue, you'll hear the name of Biren Singh come out quite a bit, because he is the Chief Minister of the state who we hold responsible for architecting this genocide or attempted genocide of our people. During the debate, recent debate, this is the monsoon session of the Indian Parliament, the Manipur crisis was sort of debated, but in that debate, Amit Shah vehemently defended his decision not to sack Biren Singh as head of the Manipur government. He actually said, he stood on the floor of the Indian Parliament and he said Biren Singh would not be sacked because he was cooperating with the central government. So my question is, if he is cooperating with the central government, so is Amit Shah the architect of this state-sponsored ethnic cleansing and attempted genocide? What is the meaning of this? For a while, we thought, you know, we could look to the central government to play a neutral role where all citizens are treated equally and have rights equally. Now we're finding out that may not necessarily be the case. And in all this, where was the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India? Not in Manipur. Until this viral video came out, he had not said a single word. He was almost pretending as if this issue did not exist. For, I think, 78 days, he did not say a word. He was busy touring the world. He was in the US, France, Egypt, and everywhere else except where he was desperately needed. In a lot of ways, his comments were worse than his silence. No minority is safe, whether it be Muslims, Dalits, Adivasis, LGBTQ people, Sikhs, Christians, nobody. As a minority which has been outnumbered and overpowered in Manipuri politics since Indian independence, Kukis-Ongis must be given greater autonomy under the Indian constitution so that we may administer ourselves and in what we're calling a separate administration. In the meantime, continued international pressure and solidarity in all forms remain incredibly urgent. This is the only hope we have left. And so, if you get a chance, please, unless you've already done it, please sign our petition where we urge the Canadian government to publicly condemn the abhorrent failures of the Indian regime and their complicity in human rights violations and crimes against humanity. We need help and aid in every possible way. We need your support to fight for a better world by coming together and combat the same oppressive forces that have brutalized our marginalized communities. And I want to thank everybody present here and people walking by, passing by. I want to thank you all so much for coming out and supporting.